waiting on me. Thank you. I'll call to order the City of Grandview Heights Council, City of Grandview Heights City Council Recreation Services and Public Facilities Committee. Present are all members of the committee, all members of the council, the mayor, Attorney Kuzan, our Director of Planning and Development, Liz Tucker, and Finance Director. Thank you. What I'd like to do is make just a slight change, if it's okay with the committee, and handle item number 2 first, so that we can turn the floor over for the remainder of the meeting to our presentation. So, ordinance 2023-04. This is second reading for this evening, but I did want to make it a topic of business for our committee meeting if there are any specific questions. We don't have a CMAR selected at this time. That is underway. It is reasonably close to a decision, but it has not been selected. Nonetheless, be happy to address any questions on that matter so that we can move it off the agenda for the committee meeting. No questions? Very well, we'll move on to our other item, the main event business, and that is a progress and planning update on our capital project enabled by the bond issue, or the bond approval that was given to us by the voters last year. We have some fine folks here that some of you have met, some of you might know and have worked with or met with in the past, traveled in to assist. Everybody's looking forward to seeing where we are, but probably the best thing for me to do would be turn it over to Liz as a secondary intro to the team and to give us any preview on the presentation we're going to see.
Thank you. Yes. So I'll just very quickly, we're going to run through a little sort of KPI status update that we'll do more on a either monthly or semi-monthly basis to start kind of doing that. And then we have our team, as you mentioned, who will give our update on the design of the building. So and I guess we could we'll do introductions as we get to them. In this first little piece of the presentation, I want to just reintroduce Milt Lewis, who many of you know. He is our owner's rep on both of the total capital project, which includes both the new municipal building as well as the new Parks and Rec building. So with that, I'll just run through really quickly some high-level status updates. Maybe. Scroll. Aha. The overall capital plan is comprised of a number of different undertakings. Of course, what we've been calling phase 1 and phase 2 include the new Parks and Rec building for McKinley and the new Fire EMS Police and Administrative Services facility. There's also another piece, which is the offsite work related to some upgrades that need to occur to Glendale Avenue and to the intersection of Glendale and Goodale. So that we'll give you a little bit of an update on that as well. And then phase 3 would be the Wine Woods expansion in the future. Just slow. Doesn't like on purpose. Okay. So in terms of the guidance for all of these projects, I thought it was worth bringing this back up that we have 2 projects with largely the same process that we use for any project that would come through the city. And that would include guidance with the Parks and Facilities Advisory Board as well as Planning Commission. The projects have been going to the Parks and Facilities Advisory Board, and we're getting ready for them to go to Planning Commission hopefully next month. In addition to that, yeah, you can see me point. The mayor has convened a design review board for the new municipal building. Some specialists from the community, including architects and landscape architects, to help provide input to the project as it has been being designed. And then on the parks project, we have also been, Mike has really helped, Director Patterson has helped convene a group of folks who've been, center members and users of Parks Recreation programming over the years to provide initial input in addition to staff, of course. So these are extra groups of folks who are helping to configure both of these projects. Our phase 1 project, the new Parks and Recreation building at McKinley Field Park, just some stats on that. The planning size of the building that we had gotten to was 4,835 square feet. We are trying to stay as close as we can to the planning square footage. Right now the building is at 5,237, providing just a nominal improvement, but really trying to stay within, a few percentage of the planned square footage for that building. So, and it's coming along nicely. We should be able to give you more of an update on that one as well pretty soon. The other thing of interest is that parking for that facility has been determined we don't need any additional parking in the park. The amount of parking and the schedule for users for the different programs, whether it's this building or other activities on the park, can coexist so that we don't need to build additional parking. So that's a savings that then kind of allows us to do this a little bit of an incremental square footage to provide the best building that we can within the budget. The Fire, EMS, Police, and Administrative Services building, also kind of keeping track of square footage by departments. We had gone through an initial planning phase, you may remember, and ended up with a building that was about between 41 and 42,000 square feet. Really tried to knuckle it down to the smallest it could be and ended the planning process with a building that was about 34,400 square feet. As we've gone through design and gotten into every nitpicky little decision about exactly what is needed, we are now at 3625, which is only 5% of an increase, which I am actually super proud of. I think that's been incredible discipline on the part of the design team, frankly, to only add just that little tiny bit of square footage. So I'm very excited about that and feel really good about not only staying true to the planning square footage, but also getting everything that the city needs and providing for growth, which Scott will talk about a little bit more soon. Also, we've been diligent about parking. We met with the Parks and Facilities Advisory Board and got into some detail about how people will be able to arrive at the building and make sure that there's enough parking, since there's not roads that you can park on down here on the side so much. So we've actually increased the parking just a little bit from the planning undertaking. The third project, the offsite scope that we have, will include updates to the utilities, drainage and curbing for Glendale, new traffic control at Glendale and Goodale, reprogramming of some of the traffic lights to be able to make sure that safety services can get where they need to get to, removal of the light up at the top of the hill, and we have engaged Ferris now to commence that planning study to try to really figure out what the scope is, and then once we know that, we'll move forward with the engineering that's required so that we can dovetail that project in with the municipal building construction. This quick look back, look ahead, things that we've recently completed. Schematic design is actually nearing completion on both projects, both scopes of work. The Parks and Facilities Advisory Board has seen and reviewed both of the projects. A little bit ahead is the municipal building. Really got into the details of the site plan and making sure that it fits in the character of the adjacent area. And then we finished the CMAR qualifications, shortlisting and ranking process last week, and are now in negotiations for the top-ranked firm and hoping to be able to have a recommendation for council at the next council meeting in February. We're also preparing for Parks and Facilities Advisory Board review meeting in February. Both of the projects should be able to go forward to that group for their input the first week of February. Planning Commission for preliminary review for site plan placement for both projects, and then working towards a more final review either in March or April. We do have an estimating company working under Hill that has begun estimating the schematic design documents, and once we get the CMAR on board, they will also immediately jump into estimating as well. So we have estimating really moving forward now. And then we will be putting an RFP out for what's called a commissioning agent, and for FF&E consultants to help us both with the commissioning agent, sort of makes certain that from a very technical engineering perspective, all the things that have been designed and installed were designed and installed correctly as an impartial third party. And then of course FF&E to help us fit out the building. So those things are still coming up. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Milt to give you a little bit of update on the overall schedule.
All right, thank you. Well, again, my name is Milt Lewis. I'm a senior project manager with Hill International. And we've been brought in to assist the city with kind of like the construction management, construction administration. We're not the contractor or designer, but we really help the city with any phase of the construction administration process. So that's hiring CMRs, as Liz mentioned, estimating, and we're also your kind of technical expert in kind of negotiating with the CMR as we move through the process. What we have up here is the kind of just a highlight schedule. Obviously, there's not a lot of detail here. But really, the idea is that, and you probably understand this already, we'll be working on the Parks and Rec building and the fire and police building in parallel. The design is proceeding in parallel. Of course, the Parks building is a little bit simpler building, so it's going to finish up in May, and we'll do a GMP for that building, a guaranteed maximum price, which is a negotiated price with our CMR. And then we'll begin construction on that. That'll start probably in August of this year. And we're looking to finish up that building in July of next year. The police and fire building is on a parallel path again, but it's a little more complex building. So its design is going to stretch into late June, early July. And at that point too, we'll do a guaranteed max. We'll add that portion of the work to the CM's contract. And then we'll start construction on that in late August, early September. One of the things I've highlighted on this schedule is there's a period, as you know, we're not vacating this building, or as you'll learn, we're not vacating this building. We're going to actually start construction of the new building right behind it. And the folks who are working here will continue to work here, but eventually they'll move to the new Parks building. And then once they've moved out of here, we'll demo this building and finish out the front site work in that for the new building. So what I've highlighted in here is kind of this critical time in the schedule. You know, we really need to try to expedite the Parks building to get it done on time, because there's a period of time during the year when you can do site work and paving and things like that, and plantings, and that's really what's kind of highlighted on this schedule. So as we come back and talk to you, we'll be working really hard to get that building moving over there and keep it on schedule, because that's what's going to allow us to finish this building in March or May of 2025. So, very good.
Any questions for Milt? Megan's got a finance update for you, and I think then we'll be done and we'll be able to go on to the fun stuff.
So these slides are charts that we're going to continue to update when we give you regular updates, so you can kind of start getting used to what you're seeing. This first one is the estimating progress. Right now we have the planning estimate, which you've probably heard me talk about before. For the municipal building, our planning estimate was 27 to 31 million. Our working target budget today is 31 million, of course. The Parks and Rec facility, our planning estimate was up to 3 million, and our working target budget is still 3 million. And then at 1016 Grandview Avenue, $1 million continues. So right now, our total project costs are $35 million, which is on the high end of what we were originally targeting, which probably is a surprise. Then this is the budget summary. So as of right now, for the construction budget on the municipal building, we're estimating $26,031,500. And for the Parks and Rec facility, we're budgeting, or our construction budget is $2,470,500. To date, we have not encumbered any of that. So that's gonna be the CMAR that we looked at appropriations tonight. The soft budget costs, that's the designers and other things that aren't the actual piece of construction. For the municipal building, the soft cost budget is $4,968,500, and for Parks and Rec, it's $592,500. To date, encumbered to date, which means we've opened purchase orders, we've entered contracts. For the municipal building, it's $2,311,270, and Parks and Rec is $255,727. So this chart is just going to help us keep track of where we are so far in the budget and what contracts have we already entered and how much are they for. Then the final, this is the funding sources summary. So we're doing a $25 million bond issue, and we said we'd use cash reserves of $6 to $10 million. So that gets us to our $35 million. So far, you've appropriated $31 million. When you approved issuing debt of $25 million, that is also considered an appropriation. So you've appropriated that. And then from the cash reserves, with ordinance 2022-38, you did a portion, and then tonight you did a reading of, or you will be doing a reading of ordinance 2023-05. Once we have those both done, you've appropriated another $6 million. So we'll be at $31 million at that point, and we anticipate that there could be another $4 million that we will ask you to appropriate. Are there any questions about some of the basic funding?
Would you mind going back to the construction costs? I got the soft costs, but for both the municipal and parks, because
Yes.
I'm having a little trouble with my
Yes.
eyesight here.
For the municipal building, the construction budget is $26,031,500. And the Parks and Rec is $2,407,500.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so that's all the KPIs we'll try to kind of keep you updated on as we go through this schedule, and now is the fun part. Come on up. So we have tonight with us the design team. This is Scott Erdy with Erdy McHenry Architects. He is joined here by Kevin Ayers and Tim Schmallenberger with MKSK Landscape Architect, and BJ Moll with Mullen Weissman. And they can talk a little bit more about the roles that they play and give you an update. So enjoy.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. We're going to go through the team and a little bit of the schedule and bring you in on our programming process. A number of you here know about what we've been up to. Talk a little bit about the context and site, and then talk about the building design that we're doing. So first of all, when we initially came and started the project, we put together a team of subject matter experts. Some of those are with us here today. Tim, in terms of landscapes, got some folks here. BJ Moll is an expert on firehouse and police station design, and a former classmate of mine. It's really been great to work with folks who have a deep bench experience on those matters. We do architecture of all types, towers to dairy barns. So we do a broad range of things. We always bring in a subject matter expert to make sure that that person helps us understand all requirements. Also with that, you see we've been working with a group at the city in terms of helping guide us in terms of the requirements that they all need. And as Liz mentioned, there's also a design advisory committee that we've met with a couple times now and got their input as sort of citizenry in the design field. So it's been very helpful, and you guys have been a great group to work with, and have been very open, and it's been actually quite fun to get to know people in the city. Kevin Ayers is with us. He's the project manager. He's going to be taking care of the schedule and sort of overall project organization.
Right, so Scott introduced the team. Part of the project is coordinating all the consultant members, but what we have up here is a detail of what Milt was showing, the overall project schedule. This sort of hones in on the process of design and the phases of design that we do. So I think we've met with several of you in December as we were working through our schematic design phase, and that involves doing the programming, finding out what the right square footages and areas for each of the rooms and where they go. We met with all the major stakeholders, the fire department, police department, and all the administrative groups to find out programmatic needs. And so I come to a point where we have a very solid design, we think, in terms of the planning, and we're moving into design development where we will start to look at the details of each of the spaces, what the materials are, say the floors and the ceilings, where the outlets go. We'll be working very closely with our consultant team to help back up that. And then the final phase is the construction documents, which will be the plans and the specifications that are used to actually buy out the project. So we'll be working again very closely with Milt to help make sure that we're on budget at each phase. Once the CM has been identified, they will help provide an estimate at each phase of this project, and then that will lead to, you know, what we hope is a on-budget, will be an on-budget project at the end. So the bottom just outlines what we've been doing at each of our meetings, and as Liz already said, we're planning to be back here in a month for the initial planning commission.
Great. So as a summary for those of you that have been involved, it's really the programming and the process we've gone through is really to understand what it is that's needed. This is a great photograph, one historic apparatus sitting out front of the firehouse, and that's been the imagery of Grandview. And so that is very important because it also is a very functional piece of equipment, right? It's there to do a duty. And you know, we look at fire trucks and they're quite beautiful kids, and I knew as a kid was quite excited about that. So a lot of what we do is try to understand that program. So the usage of the equipment, but also the spaces in order to serve the community better. So we did a survey of the existing spaces in this facility for fire and EMS, which is on the left. And we also benchmarked that with other facilities that are sort of your peer institutions. So for instance, on the right is Marysville's fire base. You can see quite different than the really tight areas here. And this is all things that you've discussed when you went through the budgeting of this. You know, also how they use the facility in terms of kitchen and dining is very important in terms of the camaraderie that you go out and risk your lives with each other, and also the dormitories. The condition on the left, and I understand it got a little bit of water recently as well. So it's a very important part of that aspect, as is training. So in police, you know, looking at each of the training spaces, how that can be part of creating a safer environment for the workers, but the first responders, but also for those that they go out and help. And even the defensive tactics training, we looked at that all the way down to the benchmarking of the dispatch, the communications area of that. So all that's very important. So seeing what you guys have, comparing it with work that BJ understands, and benchmarking with other facilities is really the best way to give you guys the best value for your dollar. And that all leads to these diagrams, which are probably hard to see there, but these bubbles really represent each of the major components of the building. So it's fairly complex. Just the city portion of this has a lot of interrelationships, as does police and fire. So we work through each of those through their size, their interconnectivity, and their requirements with regard to inside or outside the building. Here you see some diagrams of just the support spaces, mechanical on the top right, all the way to safety services and shared components on the bottom left. So each of these things relate to the major portion of the building, which is really police, fire, and city business with some ancillary functions. And we mapped out on this how this sized up compared to relative areas, and it's in line with what's been done. And all that programming work ultimately led to a programming document. This is the cover sheet of about 25 or 30 pages of highly detailed information about each of the spaces to make sure we're on track and keep that. Those are the numbers that Liz said we're very close to meeting. And that leads to architecture, which starts out with those bubbles, and they become kind of stacked up programs. So this is a stacking diagram. Sorry, I'm not pointing on both sides here. A stacking diagram where you see police in blue at the ground floor, city business in green on the second floor towards the west, and fire on 2 stories here. So a lot of these components are both 3-dimensional and 2-dimensional interrelationships that we really work with to make sure that they all function properly. And it is very complex. It's very rare that you have police, fire, and city hall sort of all together. So it's a great thing for you guys, because when we solve these functional things together, it's going to be a very efficient building, and you're going to get the most out of it for all the services that the city offers. We've been working with Tim on the site in context. So what we really try to do is understand the site context from a sort of a geometric and environmental way. So this is the site right here, the existing buildings that are on there. We look at the solar orientation, we look at the entry opportunities, we look at the landscape and the views. All these things go into making what's really a great building that is of this place and of this time. With that, we also look at context buildings in the neighborhood, right, in the community. So you see here the existing firehouse, one of the smaller buildings, the condominium building, loft building, and the schools. All these things are aspects of the architectural character that makes up Grandview Heights. So we're very mindful of that as we work. And again, the functionality of this building is the primary driver of pretty much everything that you see in it. Regarding the site, there was a study that was commissioned by you guys, by MBBJ, to study the area. It's really, our site is right here, right there, and this has been primarily an industrial area. So you see Grandview Crossing here, and you see the track location here, and you see sort of that area that the city municipal building will be at the end of that. We're very excited about that planning study that really talked about the green space coming up along Goodale and really landing at Wyman Woods and Wallace in our site. Really creates a park area, so the building can really sit within that park and that green space. So we've been very cautious about really figuring out how to keep the building as minimal touchdown space on the land as we can. So keeping it as economically efficient in terms of its land usage. And Tim's going to help me with this one a little bit. So you see the municipal building here. Here's Goodale Avenue, Grandview Avenue. Here's the building. So we have basically a parking plaza out front, which is for visitors to come to. It's meant to feel like it's in that park. We've got the apron where fire trucks take off to go to a run. We also have a way in the back to get the fire trucks through for a pull-through condition should they want to use it that way. And then we've also got secure parking down here. So we have a perimeter parking that's extremely important for police, for instance, where they are taking equipment in and out of their cars, or they're bringing somebody into the building, so that it's a very secure space for the surrounding neighborhood, as well as also the equipment that's in there. And then we've also got a perimeter landscape area here, which is a bioretention garden or a rain garden that really processes that rainwater. So ecology is very important in these things, and as we make decisions for the 100-year building, it's really important to think about stormwater, water management, and the reducing the heat island effect and maintaining the park-like quality. So we've got some flexible spaces around there, including the plaza. And you enter the building from this side here, where we're using a series of stone benches together with that biofiltration perimeter as part of the security. So as we all know, it's a different world today than it was 10 years ago or even more, and let's hope it doesn't continue that trend. But that rain garden provides actually security around that building, so it prevents a car or a truck from actually hitting the building should it try to do that. So it's basically a little bit of a drop. And then we've also shown dashed in here areas for expansion. So we know how these things are and how long it takes to get a new firehouse or to expand on that, but we have actually an additional bay that can be actually expanded to the fire apparatus bay should we need a ladder as heights grow taller in Grandview. And then we've also got an expansion in this location for municipal services as well as police on that ground floor. That perimeter that I spoke of is really a landscape perimeter. You can see here the building on the left and that sort of basin that actually works very hard to process stormwater. It actually cleans the water before it goes into the river and the sewer system. And you can see that landscape actually becomes part of the architectural vision that you see in that landscape. And it also becomes a seat wall. I think that was somebody's recommendation on this council. But really how we look at that, that perimeter area that is along the building is a functional landscape that's going to process stormwater, whether it's a monoculture or multiple species in that. But it really does well to enhance the stormwater capability of the building, but also the security of that. And then on the front side of the building, that entry plaza becomes a parking area that, at some point in the future like that, you feel like it's a part of the park. It's not necessarily an asphalt parking lot with a concrete curb and all that around it. So it's all part of a design that's meant to enhance the place, make it a better quality, both ecologically and also aesthetically. And then with that, we're looking at right now at this phase about how stormwater is actually managed. So this is a diagram from the civil engineer where we're going to use pervious pavement, we're going to do infiltration, we're going to have a potential basin. And each of those areas will be thought about in terms of what they are and the materiality of that in terms of pervious paving that allows the water to go in back into the ground water, and it also becomes a delightful place to be. But the nice thing is really that how that building is going to sit in the landscape. It's going to be quite elegant how it sits within that stormwater management basin, which is really like a rain garden, and how we look at this. So as we're designing this, Tim and I are working through different scenarios on how that works and its sustainable nature, and also the expression of its sustainability. So the building, so we're beginning the design development phase, as Kevin said. So now we start to look at how the building looks and how it feels and what the materiality of it are. We've gone through a lot of work with some of the folks in the room here about what each space needs and the requirements and what those need. So back to the planning diagram where you see fire, police in the city, what that leads to is a massing strategy, much like this. So this is still very preliminary, but looking at the corner of Grandview and Goodale, you see that parking plaza here, which is integrated with landscape and paving in a way that doesn't make it like a parking lot. It's more like a park where you park. And then you see the building here where the trucks pull out and they can return back this lane here. We have secure parking in this area. And then we have the fire bays, really fire, police underneath, and then council and city business on the top. And here you can see that perimeter water rain garden that goes around the outside for that. And if we kind of do an x-ray of the building, you can see a little bit into the inside. So you see the cellular spaces on the ground floor. You have administration for fire, their data room, all the support spaces that support the vehicles in terms of equipment for the firefighters, as well as EMS, and well as cleaning them as they come back. The decontamination of that, extremely important. And then police on the other side, having access to directly from the Sally port into the building, so people can come in a true processing way that's safe for both the first responders, but also people visiting and for all of you guys as well. And we've worked through all the detail with this. There's still access from the public side where you can get to dispatch. You can interact with the police or interact with fire or city council or the city business. So there's a stair that connects to the ground floor to the second floor in addition to an elevator that really gives you a sense of that connectivity up to the second floor. So we want people to use their feet, use their legs, and walk up the stairs. It's going to be a joyful experience. So there's a 2-story lobby space here, which is going to be very welcoming and full of light. It's north-facing glass. So that'll be a very exciting space to see. And we've gone through several iterations of what this thing looks like. So this is one of our design review meeting, our second design review meeting, looking at all sorts of options to that, sort of preferencing a more singular sort of shape that actually highlights each of the individual functions. So from that, we're on 8 new scenarios of that already. But again, this is what we look at in design development, where we start to really look at the materiality of it, how it's actually made and put together. And it might look something like this, where you see the fire bays. On the east side, you see the sort of fire administration, the larger sort of glass space, which is the lobby space that invites you in. And then when you look from the other side, you see that lobby again on this area here, and you've got police business on the bottom of this, and then council offices. This happens to be city council chambers where you'll be having a meeting like this. And there's also a small porch that's adjacent to council chambers, but also the city offices. And it's, a lot of folks that work here in the building all day long don't have a chance to sort of experience it. You're always here ready to help somebody. So it's really important for the wellness of people to really have the ability to go outside briefly, have your lunch out there, have a quick chat out there, a meeting and things like that. So it'll be a really delightful space in the building that will be used by the offices, but also available to the council chambers when there's a meeting or a break in between. So if you go into that lobby, this is what you might see. So This is the entry point here on the left. You see the historical fire apparatus here. You see a double height space, fire beyond there, police beyond here. That's actually the new dispatch room that will not be the primary receptionist. There'll be a reception station next to that. But behind that glass wall is their dispatch where they're keeping an eye on everything in the city and dispatching folks to where they're needed. So we're working through all of that with that group. And as we look towards council chambers, you see that stairway that leads you to the council. And so it's meant to be both a stair but also a seating stair. So it's also a place to sit, like a bleacher platform where you could have small groups there. You could actually sit out there. There'll be places to plug in your laptop or charge your phone and sit there. And it's actually another part of the social interaction of the building. And then if you take it into the fire bays, you can see a couple of views here of the fire bays, which will be adequate height, adequate equipment, bifold doors that operate very quickly to get you in and out and have less maintenance. And so we're just starting to push all the detail into that space. The fitness area and training on the second floor, which will be open to all city sort of workers, but it's also primarily the primary physical fitness for both fire, EMS, and police. And you can see the space from a couple of different angles. And while it's modest, what we are trying to do is have there be actually a large window, almost like a door that opens in a couple of positions to let air circulate through there. So right now, as you know, there's very little circulation of air in the fitness area. So I think that'll be a nice place to work out and really encourage those folks to use it. In the general office space, this is a view looking back towards the lobby here. So as you come into that space, this is part of a small open office area that'll help get you back, and that's finance's door right here into that space. That'll keep everything secure. And there's some meeting space in there as well that will have a nice view of the green space. I think that it doesn't cost any more to do logical planning that allows the views out of windows to do good things and make people feel good about the environment. And it's very much a healthy thing to do as well. And then council chambers here, you see the sort of green view on both sides of that room. I think it would be very important, and I think that if you see that ceiling of that, we're starting to look at the structural system being a CLT plank, which is a great combination of a steel frame and CLT plank, which is, sequesters carbon. So it's a great thing to do. It's a renewable resource, sequesters carbon, but it also speaks the message of sustainability in a way that makes people sort of feel good. It's almost biophilic in its nature between that and the views out of the green space. And then if you just turn left from council chambers in that picture, this is that terrace that's on the outside of the building. So you can see you're looking towards Columbus, you're looking south. That's Grandview Avenue on the right. So it's a really nice space on the outside that folks can go use in between meetings or during the day as they work. And so this is a view. This will spin a couple of times. So you see the fire apparatus here. Primarily the fire folks. We're on Goodale Avenue, sort of traveling westward. And then you see the parking area that's coming up here. Again, meant to be a place to park within a park, so it's not going to be a parking lot feel to that at all. A little bit of fire administration, and this is the main lobby, where you can see a glimpse of that stair that takes you up. But it's going to be very open and welcoming where it needs to be. It's going to be very secure and safe where it needs to be, and it's going to be built in a way that's going to make it a 100-year building for Grandview Heights. So we're just delighted to be a part of this. It's a very important project. Everybody here has been extremely good to work with, and we're very proud of where we are at this point. So I'll take any conversations first.
Any questions?
Meg?
Yes.
What can you talk about that carbon sequestration element again, and if you know the mechanics of how it works?
So wood is a renewable resource, and when a tree grows, it takes carbon out of the environment, right? So as we know, when we do things like concrete, they put carbon into the environment for their manufacture. So it's a renewable resource. So basically what it is you use the wood CLT, cross-laminated timber, to create the floor slab that spans between those beams. So by that nature, you're sequestering carbon in that aspect. Now that's something that we're looking at in design development. I want to make any large promises on that, because as you know, the construction market in Columbus is a little crazy. right now, so it's going to depend a lot on availability of different things. And it might work out that that's the most available thing, so we're looking at it on several projects right now.
Okay.
When during the project process that you pointed out, none of us could read it, I don't think, unless, it's okay, it's not your fault. It's just, approximately when will these material selections start to dictate based upon price? Like when does it fold in and actually become the direction? When are those, I know it's hazy to answer that, but like in process, when does that occur?
Yeah, well, so we will be getting our first estimate, I believe, from Mill, in a week or two.
Oh,
And that'll be
good.
outside, and, that'll help give us some clarity on where is the market in Columbus, in the area. And once the CM is on board, we'll be back and forth with them a lot more. I mean, it's not just the materials, it's the mechanical systems. We have, in what we've prepared already, we have alternates in several things. One of the important one is the mechanical systems, because we think we've picked one that has a very good value, but part of the value is the operational cost. So that will be happening in the next couple of months, because when we start doing construction documents, we want to have those things selected. And that,
Yeah, and generally the way we look at it, Anthony, is like the longer lead items are the things you want to pin down first, because they're typically a larger portion of your budget. So superstructure, foundation system, the structural system, then after that mechanical system and skin. So what we try to do is prioritize those decisions that have a higher percentage of the budget, right? That way we get feedback as early as possible. And then, for instance, like the easiest one at the bottom is color, like when we're talking about wall color, right? So that pushes it way out, so that's the extreme. So, trying to get the big ticket items set as soon as we can to get verification for where we are.
So in translating that, it's safe to say that there may be renderings, there may be directions, there may be conceptual, just like this, that are going to continue to present themselves to us that may or may not change still based upon material availability, budget, feasibilities, et cetera.
That's absolutely right.
I'm clarifying for the. Any other questions? None for you. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. Is TJ or
Boy,
anyone gonna?
nobody seemed like very anxious to come help you.
You're doing such a great job.
I gave Tim a couple opportunities, I gave TJ a couple.
How many hours do I have?
We've got about 10 minutes. I just wanted to make you available to council if anyone had any questions directly regarding your expertise in the effectively first responder based structures and facilities. It's certainly a necessity to have you on board, and we're very fortunate to have your input and your guidance. It's a very, very different building as we interact with our constituents and try and explain. We get a lot of simple comparisons that aren't appropriate at all, because there's not a wide level of understanding about what this particular structure is going to require. Some by use, some by code, some by best practice, et cetera. But I figured I would kind of make you available to any questions if anyone has them.
I have another one. And I should have said at the top that it's really exciting, the design and some of the natural elements of the building and the stormwater management through green infrastructure, very supportive of that. I wondered with some of the pervious surfaces, how do those last over time? How do they age, and do you have to do some specific kind of maintenance to keep those operating, and functioning to allow the water to filtrate through?
Yes. A lot of it goes into the actual detail, because it's typically a paver. We try and select a higher grade concrete paver that has like a topping on it that has granites mixed in it, versus just a plain concrete paver, right? Which, that's what you see the degradation on, right? So we're gonna be really trying to push the envelope, you know, on a higher quality material. And and help offset that, we're saving on the curbs, right? Because what you see in this plan is that there really aren't curbs as we would normally see it in here. The previous pavement would, you know, maybe it has a slight bump at the edge so you know where to stop, you know, when you're parking. But the idea is that the park, the pervious area, and the front run together so it can be, you know, programmed and used, right, as part of like the park system. That kind of came out, in the kind of programming aspect of it. And so we're pretty excited about that. Civil-wise, they want to store detention under the lot in a gravel area, not necessarily the more expensive half pipe, air kind of storage things, but in the gravel, right? So we're trying to put as much water back in the ground, as possible. Likewise, we refer to it as like the landscape moat that's around the building. And that's really a big filter for as much of the site that we can get into it, primarily off the parking lots that are close to it, certainly the roof, right, to catch the particulates, out of the air and really put it through that biofilter from that end. But the key in that detail for the, getting back to the pervious pavement is that there's many materials. We're going to want to stick to the higher end of a concrete material. They also can make them in granite, but we're trying to be anticipatory of what the price is going to be, right? So that's kind of where we're heading. There's a lot of we've had most success with using larger aggregates between the stone, right? Not the finer grains like sand, like in a typical residential development where water passes more freely, less time before the smaller particulates tend to clog it up, which then you end up either vacuuming, right? Typically, you would vacuum it out, and the time frame is typically about every 10 years is what we found on that. So that kind of gives you an idea of the permeable pavement on that. But it's I think overall the site, when you look at it, we want to make sure that when you look at it, you don't go, oh, there's the detention basin, right? We want that disguised in to the site, right? So you do not see that typical engineering feature from that, and we feel like the plan to date has those opportunities in it, and so we're pursuing that. Some will be in lawn areas, some will be in the parking lot, right? Some will be in the landscape moat area, right? But we're basically spread it around on that, so you don't see it in one spot.
Yeah, I love all that, and
Okay.
thanks for speaking my language. I work in water policy.
Right.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Anyone in the audience? I don't think there's anyone that I can see, but I think we're all good. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to continued progress. Very happy with where we are, and certainly everything seems to be flowing together quite nicely with the efforts that we made to prepare for your involvement, and then how that has dovetailed directly into an action plan, and hopefully May 2025 christening.
We're very excited about the project and appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate you as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With no other business on the committee, I will adjourn.